in the heat of the competition, when you have the ups and the downs of athletics, don't forget to stop and remind yourself to have fun. Those are some words from today's guest, Ryan Winterswyk, who is a former Boise State football player who played a short stint in the NFL as well. Today, we get to talk to him and learn about his journey. I'm super excited for this one, guys, because he played for Boise State during an era of some amazing football. He was part of some amazing teams who played in some big-time games, big-time atmospheres, big-time environments, and he has a lot to share with us. You know, the transition to collegiate athletics, overcoming injuries, some very poorly timed injuries that he had no control over, but things that shifted, you know, the trajectory of his career and how he was able to overcome those things. We'll talk about the big wins as well as the big losses, the losses that he experienced at Boise State, and then his professional career and the things that he learned while he was there, and just the fun stories that we get to hear today. I'm really excited about that. And I want to give a shout out to Dr. Eric Thompson, who was the one who connected me with Ryan Winterswyk. And Ryan wanted me to make sure to give him a shout out. So Dr. T, appreciate you for your connection to Ryan. And for all those who are listening, make sure to tap into this one. This is the Gametime Guru. So,
what time is it? Game time!
This is the Gametime Guru Podcast, where I interview sports figures from all over the world to help deliver a panoramic view on sports. So whether you're a former athlete, one of the crazies, or simply a casual sports fan, this is the perfect show for you as we peel back the curtains and learn from our guests every single week. I'm your host, Shane Larson, and I'm helping you see sports through a different lens. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Gametime Guru Podcast. Shane Larson here, host of the show. Man, it's a really good opportunity to chat with you guys today. A cool opportunity for me. I get to speak to another former Boise State football player who had a stint in the NFL as well, which we'll talk about. But his story is very nostalgic for me. As you guys know, as you heard in the introduction, you know, this era of Boise State football was a big deal for me when he was playing during that time, because it brings back a lot of memories for me. I served a church mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints during 2008 to 2010, but like the 2006, 2007 era, and then the 2010 season when I came home from my mission. So like I got a little mixture of some stuff there when he was playing. His name's Ryan Winterswyk, and he is joining the show. So Ryan, thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Shane. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. I want to give a shout out to my good old friend Eric for the connection too. So Eric, if you're listening to this, truly appreciate you making the connection there. We were chatting at a club basketball tournament. I was coaching his son, and he's like, "Hey, do you know Ryan?" I'm like, "Of course I know who he is, man. I follow Boise State football religiously. I graduated from BSU and all that." And he's like, "Oh yeah, like I can get the connection for you." I'm like, "Okay." So I want to shout him out too. So if you're listening to this, thank you so much for that connection. And Ryan, I want to go back in time real quick and kind of get to know you as far as, you know, your sports career. Obviously, we'll talk about when you got to Boise State as a football player, but I want to talk about it even before that, because there's a journey that takes people to that level of football, and it's not always an easy one. There's ups and downs and stuff. So I want to talk about you as an athlete back in the day. So when you were younger, I guess as a kid, Ryan, were you a multi-sport athlete, or did you focus in on football at a young age? Like, what was your athletic journey like?
Yeah, that's a great way to start. Is my journey when I was young. I didn't play football until I was a freshman in high school. So
wow.
I played basketball, ran track, and baseball was really my big thing as a kid from when I was, 5 years old. Growing up, never really got into the travel ball, but played on some all-star teams and things. But my parents I had a lot of energy. So like a lot of kids do. And they said the best way to make sure I behaved in church and everything was to make sure I was worn out. So I played about every sport you could. And then even did like individual sports, like mountain biking, climbing, all these different things, skiing, snowboard. They try to make sure I did it all. So, and then my freshman year of high school is when I started my football journey. I always wanted to play football, but they wouldn't let me until I was in high school, because we had kind of funny rules, and maybe it's the same to this day. But when you're a bigger, younger kid, as a big kid, you get bumped in the groups with the older kids. So I would have been a little guy, mentally, but physically I was still a big kid. And then we didn't have like they do here with football in the junior high schools, which I think is a really cool thing to have.
So they didn't have football in junior high where you were from. Were you in California at the time?
I was, yeah. They had Pop Warner in the Southern California area, and you could do that, but it wasn't associated with the school. So it was kind of run a little bit looser.
Gotcha. So so Pop Warner is similar to what we have here in Idaho, which is Optimus football. And then now they've got the club travel football, which for Idaho Youth Contact. And I know down in California, it's interesting because they have some club teams down there, the OG Ducks out of the Inland Empire area. And then they have Snoop's Youth Football League is now down there for the youth football that's kind of going there. And he's, there's been some good talent that's come out of there too. But yeah, that's interesting. So were you always a tall kid then? Because you're listed as 6'4". Obviously, I knew you when you were in college, so I knew you were fully grown at that point. But were you always one of the taller kids in your class?
Yeah, definitely on the taller side. I think I was about 6 foot my freshman year of high school. Then by the end of my sophomore year, I was 6'4", so a little over. So yeah, definitely on the taller, lankier side. Of an older brother who was he's the same build but with muscle versus me, and he's a super highly recruited kid. He's like the number 5 recruited tight end in the country, and everyone thought I was going to be him. I was 7 years behind him. They thought I was going to be the same, and I just kind of never really got into my man body. I was delayed about 5 years behind him.
Hey, it happens. Everybody develops at a different point, right? That's cool though. So when you got into football, you were probably, kind of in today's standards, it's almost like late to the game, but obviously worked out for you. So let's, I guess I'll dissect that. When you were in high school playing ball, were you always playing on the defensive side of the ball, or were you playing tight end like your brother at the time?
I actually played mostly on my freshman and sophomore year. I played wide out and tight end. Definitely got brought up through the school of hard knocks. The kids that had been playing through the Pop Warner stages, I'll never forget summer practice freshman year. I just catch the ball over the middle, running completely upright, and we kind of had a stud linebacker, and he just decleated me, knocked the wind out of me, and it was kind of one of those welcome to the real world of football moments. Like, people, you get hit in this game, so it was a good awakening, but it happened pretty quick.
Oh, that's crazy, man. Question for you then, I guess for someone like yourself, at what point during your high school career, Ryan, did you realize that maybe playing collegiately was in the books, where you could probably go take this to the next level?
That going kind of from my sophomore to junior year, transitioning, I was kind of figuring it out, the game a little bit, catching up to the speed. Throughout my entire career, as we'll talk, I kind of always played out of position. Was that tweener guy wherever I went. So I played tight end. We had quite a few good tight ends. Actually, another kid from our school, in my class, went to UC Davis, started all 4 years there. And so I kind of would mix in with him in double tight situations, but then I ended up playing like a hybrid safety, rover or outside linebacker position. It was technically as a free safety. And what I did in my position, I didn't have a whole lot of coverage responsibility. I did in cover 2, but other than that, it was just be the guy to go get all the tackles and clean everything up. So once my sophomore and junior year, I had a pretty good season, and then I started getting the recruiting messages and attention from coaches. So that's when it kind of clicked, like, okay, this is something I might want to do in college. And seeing my brother go and go on to college, like, I knew at a very young age that was a goal of mine. That's something I wanted to do.
Oh, that's sweet, man. So when the time came, I guess my question is, Boise State, how did you make the decision to go to Boise State? Because you came on as a walk-on, to my understanding. But what made the decision there? Were there other schools that you could have taken with a scholarship offer, or was there something that intrigued you about Boise State in particular?
Yeah, Boise State, they came in early, and I remember I was getting some attention from Cal and some of the Pac-10 schools at that time that I really wanted to go play at. And then actually was going to commit to Fresno State and sign with them. They came in and offered me pretty early. And going after my senior season, before signing day, I was surfing and I tweaked my knee and I tore my meniscus. And I'll never forget, I get the phone call. It's like, actually, I was going to do my recruiting visit at Fresno State at that time in a couple of weeks. And they're like, yeah, we're going to cancel your visit. And like, then the offer was pulled and you got that feeling like, okay. And so I had some 1AA schools that were definitely interested in coming in and saying, hey, you should come take a look. And I felt like I could play at the 1A level. The timing of the knee injury wasn't great. And so Boise State Coach Tuivai at that time came in and he basically locked me down. He's like, you're coming here. You're not going to go play JC ball and try to bounce out somewhere else. Just gray shirt. You can stay at home, take some classes, and then come out here in the spring. So I ended up going that route. Hindsight's 2020, and it was a great decision. But at the time, I was definitely conflicted on, okay, am I doing the right thing? Is this going to pan out? And then to put the cherry on top, it's also at the time where Dan Hawkins decides to leave to go to Colorado. So all my recruiting had been through Dan. They ran out of scholarships, and he's like, hey, we'll give you this preferred walk-on spot. You got a spot here, and he leaves. And blessing in disguise, Chris Petersen is the guy filling in, and he sat me down when I got there the first day and said, whatever Hawkins had committed to you, nothing's changing. So,
oh wow, a couple things there. I still want to get Coach Pete on the show. I've had Hawk on the show, but I want to get Coach Pete because I've been there when Pete was talking. He was a keynote speaker for one of our athletic leadership conferences I attended, and man, that guy. Man, he's very powerful dude. So that's kind of cool.
Yes.
That story right there that he kept to that to the original plan. But something you said there, Ryan, that I want to dive into a little bit just from the mental side of things, just in case there are some football players here that are listening, or even like high school athletes of any kind that might be going through an unfortunately a very bad timing of an injury or something of that sort through the recruiting process. You hurt your knee doing something you enjoy doing, but Fresno pulls the offer. I'm sure there was more to it as far as your mental and emotional, how that affected you. I guess walk us through that if you wouldn't mind. Like, how did it affect you mentally, and how did you continue moving forward? I mean, I'm sure that's actually like devastating. A torn meniscus isn't like an overnight thing. That's something that you still have to fix the physical side of it, plus the emotional and mental toll that it's taken on you at the most untimely possible. Like it's just bad.
Yeah.
So walk us through that a little bit and how you were able to get through that.
Yeah, you're right. It was definitely a disappointment at the time. And, your friends and your family and everyone's like I had my aunts and uncles went to Fresno State. It's this ag school. We kind of like that. And anyway, you had to go and tell everyone, actually, I'm not going there. Pat Hill decided to say no. So mentally, yeah, it was a tough time. And then you're also dealing with being hurt. I had my meniscus repaired, which was kind of the thing to do at the time, being young and having it. And then I went to the Angels, actually, who lived pretty close to I was rehabbing at their facility, and their team doctor came in, looked at it, and he's like, yeah, well, that's just going to tear again. And I was like, oh man, that guy's just a jerk. And he was right. It tore again 2 years later. But you're kind of just in this mental hole, but I had the goal, and I think really Coach Tuivai coming in and being like, we want you. Like, you come here, like, sucks, we don't have any scholarships, we can't offer you anything, but it's like, I can offer you my word that if you can get on the field and play, you're gonna have a scholarship right away. And so I use that just kind of as my goal to train, and luckily I have a really strong family and support crew around me, and they were all very supportive of helping me bounce back.
That's so cool, man. I think that's a good life lesson too, just like support crew, but you just got to keep fighting. You got to keep getting, especially if you're good enough to play. Like, people will know you're good enough to play. You're just gonna have to take advantage of the opportunities. But I like that you mentioned at the end there, the support crew. That's an important piece of it as well. Now, as you're going over to Boise State, that was obviously during that transition era when Hawk was leaving. If for those who don't remember, if you're a younger athlete and you might not fully understand it, because all you know is Boise State football now, if you're here in the Boise Valley, or even if you're just a younger generation, you follow Boise State football at all. Like, that was an interesting time because they had a semi-disappointing season, semi-disappointing end to a season when Hawk was kind of on his way out, and They were trying to see if they're going to live up to the hype, and then they go into the next year where they ultimately ended up winning the Fiesta Bowl. And so that was my freshman year at Boise State, was the 2006-2007 season, and it was really cool for me. It's very nostalgic because that was it was a shift. That was when Petersen came in and did his thing, and kind of like there was another shift in Boise State's growth. My question is for you though, like coming in during that era, like it's during that time frame of just like all the stuff that's happening and being a part of that even. What was the culture like when you first got to Boise State? What did you notice when you first got there? And was it what you expected it to be?
Yeah, the culture, I think, was established a long time ago, even before Hawkins, where with that blue collar mentality, which fit really well with my style of being a hustle type of player. And coming in, there was definitely this like anxiety in around the program, right? Okay, Coach Hawkins is out of here, and we have this young guy that's never been a head coach before. As an offense coordinator, and they were just kind of this what if, and luckily things just gelled right, and I think that happens here a lot at Boise State. There's diamonds in the rough that get brought up here. You got guys like Ashton Genty coming to Boise State, but there's a glue and a culture in that locker room that it's hard to explain, but it's kind of like it doesn't matter who you are. You're connected through a common goal to win championships. And that 2006 to 2007 year, everything connected from the offensive side to the defensive side to the special teams where it worked out to really, we went out and stunned the country in the Fiesta Bowl.
So were you on the roster during that Fiesta Bowl game against Oklahoma?
Correct. Yeah. So that was my redshirt freshman year.
So did you get to suit up and be there then, like on the sideline?
I did. Yeah. That was wild. That was a fun one.
It's so cool. It's one of my favorite memories of my entire life, being there. Like it was one of the coolest experiences. And my good friends. So I'm really good friends with Kyle Brotzman and then his younger brother, Brian. And they were both at the time red shirts, I believe, because at least they were both there. I think Brian might've been a gray shirt. I can't remember, but they're both there on the sideline of that Fiesta Bowl. And it's just like, it's one of my favorite memories of life, because I was a freshman in college and Boise State was on this high. They win the game. It was the biggest thing.
I got a quick Kyle Brotzman then. So Kyle and we came in together during the spring, both walk-ons, and there was like 22 walk-ons or something. And we were the two that survived. So we always kind of had this pride, this walk-on pride that we made it through our whole career after we watched all these guys fall off. So Kyle's a good friend of mine too.
Oh, that's dope. Yeah, dude. That's so cool. Yeah. I love Kyle. He's one of my favorite people, man. He's got a cool story that people don't realize. I had him on the show about 6-7 years ago. Just, his whole journey to even playing college football was crazy. Cause he graduated a year before me. And then he just was doing coaching. He was being coached on kicking, and he was training, and then made an opportunity out of it and figured it out. Right. So then he made himself a good career. And so that's kind of cool that you guys know each other too. That's dope.
Yeah.
So obviously you had an experience to be on some really good programs at Boise State. So you are a part of a lot of good teams. What was your favorite memory throughout those years you were at Boise State? Because there were some big time games you guys were able to compete in. And I'm just curious if you have like a top memory there, one that was your favorite.
The top one, which probably a lot of guys my class pick, was winning that Fiesta Bowl against TCU after losing the bowl game to him the year before. One of the coolest memories I have was when we beat Oregon in 2008. That place was just cranking and going nuts, and like Autzen does, it's an unbelievable experience playing there. And then for that stadium to go from as loud as it was to as quiet as it was by the middle of the second quarter, it was a very interesting experience to have. I don't think a lot of people get that, where you shut Oregon up at home.
That's so cool, dude. Yeah. Having been to Autzen this year for the first time, went there for the Ohio State-Oregon game because I'm a Buckeyes fan too. So I was there for that big one this year, and that's my first time in Autzen, and that was unbelievable there. That place is loud. So if you can get them to be quiet, that's a pretty big accomplishment in my book. So the TCU Fiesta Bowl, Man, you were also there. You were there for some good things, like the next year Oregon's game, the Hout punch, the blunt punch.
Oh yeah,
Okay, let's. Were you on the field when that happened? Because I was actually living in Brazil at the time for a church mission that I was serving, and so when the blunt punch happened, I'm just curious what it was like, being a part of the team. I don't know where you were at during that, but do you remember it happening?
I was like probably 15 yards away. I didn't really know what was going on, and then just heard the scuffle happening. But Byron was one of my close friends, and then Dan Paul was right next to him, and Coach Pete kind of set him up a little bit, got him nice and turned to take that punch. But Dan was like going nuts and he was going to try to go after LeGarrette too. And but yeah, I was a little ways away, and then all of a sudden we're kind of all getting like pushed into the locker room and told to get off the field, and you didn't get the full story until we're back in the locker room.
When you guys saw it though, like saw the replays of everything happening, did that continue on in the locker room as far as like getting frustrated? When you hear about the malice at the palace and you see about you hear these guys like Steven Jackson for the Pacers, they're talking about what happened once they got into the locker room and how they're still going crazy, and they're even more upset about stuff. Like, did that happen in the locker room, or did it kind of get shut down pretty quick?
Oh, we were so happy with the result of the game and how everything played out. We were up here, and so things were said that I can't repeat in public ever, like that Byron got up and said. That was hilarious because he got sucker punched to a T there. But we all kind of just laughed it off, and then that was it. No one was like, trying to. That Oregon locker room back then, it's just across the training room from us. So if we really wanted to, we could cause some trouble. But he laughed it off. Someone had started making jokes about it. And then I remember the next day, I know LeGarrette had to make a phone call to Byron and in Coach Pete's office, which we all kind of hung around for and listened in on, which was pretty funny.
Man, what a crazy time, dude. And that's right. You guys were there during the era before like the big facility was built. So your locker rooms were not too far from each other back then.
No,
that's crazy. Oh man.
That's so wild. We were a little bummed that that was on the defensive side of the ball, we put on a pretty good performance that game. We were a little bummed, you're out late at night watching the ESPN highlights and it's all about the punch. It's not about how we shut them down. This high powered offense didn't do anything. But
yeah, it is a bummer because I'll be honest, now that you say that, I was in Brazil. I know exactly where I was at. The very next morning, I went to go check the internet to see what the score was. And that was the first thing that popped up on ESPN.com back then. Was it was just about the punch. And then I saw the score. Obviously, it was in there, but that overshadowed everything. It seemed like it's just crazy. That's unfortunate, but that's a wild time in history, man. I can't believe that. It's wild. And Byron Howe, dude, I like the guy. Dude, he graduated the same year I did, the year after I did, but I just remember how monstrous he was as a high school football player up at Lake City. He was just nasty. And so it's kind of cool to watch his journey as well. But everyone always just wondered, dude, how did he get knocked down? He got clocked pretty good. And so, but he got up pretty quick too. So is what it is. Yeah. Talking about some of those games, I like the big atmosphere games, right? You talked about Oregon at Autzen. You're talking about the Oregon game at home. You're talking about the Fiesta Bowl against TCU. There's been some big games. I mean, Virginia Tech, for crying out loud. There's some big games, big atmospheres. As a player, I want to ask you this, especially Virginia Tech, because that was my first game. I had gotten home from my church mission. That was my first game I had gotten to go to in 2 years. So we go down there to Washington, D.C. And as a fan, I'm like 5 rows up from the sideline on the Boise State side. And when they started doing the Enter Sandman entrance, I had never experienced anything like that. I've seen it all over college football my whole life, been watching on TV, never experienced it until then. And that place was rocking. I started yelling because I was so hyped up, and it was during their entrance. So I'm curious for you guys, because I remember up on the screen, they're still doing their thing. Everyone's jumping up and down. They've already come out to the field, but they're kind of still jumping. And then they show up on the screen. It was like Kellen and a couple other guys just walking out, just chill, walking during all the madness. Could you guys hear it where you guys were at? And what was the feeling like coming out to that stadium, that type of an environment?
Yeah, that was one of the cooler experiences I had in college was that. It's a big Metallica fan too. It felt like the stadium was shaking though. I don't know how it felt in the stands, but it felt like, it was rocking and rolling, and we're like, it was just a really cool experience. We always say, as soon as you have the first hit, or as soon as the first whistle blows, everything just kind of blocks out, blinders go on, and you're in your zone doing your thing. But until that point, that was a very intimidating moment. Fly over, that going on. There's all kinds of things. You're playing in an NFL stadium. Very cool experience there. And then what a fun football game that was, chasing Tyrod Taylor around all game.
Oh, dude. Tyrod Taylor, let's give him some credit, though. He looked dope in his uniform, dude. That was one of the sickest uni combos I've seen them play in, and he looked good. But you were shutting him down for the majority of the game. He made some plays here and there, but who is the best player, Ryan, that you've gone against in your collegiate career? Who was the best player that you had ever gone against?
That's a good question. There's what's his name? There's a couple kids from the guy from Eastern Carolina, the running back, Chris Johnson. Was dirty. Just the way I had multiple interactions with him that game, and not that he was a powerful guy, but the absolute speed he had. I had never in my career, until that was my freshman year. I had never seen anything like that. He was in the first quarter. And Coach Pete talked him up all game. He said, "This guy's a first round draft pick. You got to be ready for him. He's an elite player." The problem is Coach Pete cried wolf a little bit sometimes, and he would say that about guys, and you go out there and dominate him and be like, "That guy's not a first round draft pick, or something." And so we go to the Hawaii Bowl, and sure enough, here comes Chris Johnson. It's like third play, he just breaks one, and I know I don't have the angle on him. I see the linebacker get run, and then our fastest guy on our team is Orlando Scandrick, and Orlando has the angle on the pursuit against the sideline, and I just see Chris Johnson pulling away, and I was like, "Oh shoot, this guy is quick." And then he got me once in the backfield. I had him dead to rights on a tackle for loss, and he just shook me and jump cut, and then I thought I could jump back up, and he was gone. He was like 10 yards away by the time I got up. So just for elite speed and quickness. And then he went on to go show it in the NFL. But wow, he was an incredible player. When I was just developing as a young freshman, it completely blew me away.
Dude, that game, people forget about that game. It's like one of those games that nobody remembers in Boise State history. Dude, that was so frustrating. It was such a frustrating game to watch, just because he was just unbelievably, and I actually didn't really pay attention to him until that game. So that's what's crazy, is I was like, I should have known who he was, but I never paid attention to East Carolina. I didn't care. And then all of a sudden he's just running everywhere. So I can imagine, as a player, that's wild, dude. Now here's a question that I want to ask you, Ryan, for other athletes too that are listening, because it's a really important one. You had some really highs of highs, like some big time games, big time moments, but there's been some tough losses that you've been part of as well. Like just being, when you play at a big time level, sometimes you'll experience some big time losses that are just unfortunate losses at the wrong times. That just kind of, they're crushing, right? Whether it be Hawaii, whether it might be Nevada, it could be TCU. Talk to us about the toughest losses and how you were able to utilize that as fuel. How do you get over those ones? Because some people, they don't get over them. I've seen a lot of athletes get crumbled by losses, and I'm trying to teach these younger athletes that I coach how to experience a loss and then leverage that and utilize it as, how do you get over it, for one, and use it as a learning opportunity? Yeah,
the losses are the games you definitely remember the most vividly, and stick with you and carry. And like you said, they can put you in the hole, but I think our team, it was good. We never went to a blame game on guys, not okay, we lost because you screwed up or something, and that was from the top down. Petersen had really good leadership. It's not, that might've been the play that someone screwed up that everyone saw, but there was 6 other plays that people screwed up that were big too, that no one saw. And learning from it, trying to learn, not make the same mistake you did before. Those big losses, there's always something in the background going on to TCU. We had, we were playing with half a team, basically, how our whole team was banged up and hurt. The Nevada loss, that one definitely hurt the most. And that game, we sat down afterwards, because obviously Bratzi took the brunt of it. And we kind of rallied around him as a team, and everyone sat down and was like, this is the play I could have done. I missed a sack on Kaepernick in the fourth quarter that he broke for a 30-yard run. There was multiple plays that could have ended that game in our favor that we screwed up. So, but yeah, taking something from it and improving upon it. That's not usually a physical thing. It's a mental thing, mental mistakes that can be corrected.
Yeah, man. Dude, losing sucks. That's a part of sports. I was just talking to my son. He's in second grade. We lost in the flag football championship, second season in a row. We lost in the championship. And we got housed this time. It was like 20-0, right? My son, second grader, he's playing quarterback. He had a hard time. He's crying about it, typical. And I'm like, but you can't replicate this in a lot of areas, right? Like, you can't replicate a loss like that and the feelings that you get. Sports teach you a lot, man. Like, you're going to have to learn. We don't get that game back. We're not going to win the championship again. So it's like, we can play as good as we can next season, but you never can guarantee that you're going to get that game back. So what do you got to do? Like, you got to learn from it somehow and utilize it. And that's the unfortunate thing is some kids will lose in the state championship their senior year in high school. You never get it back. That's the reality. You're never going back. You don't get it back. And so that's the unsettling feeling. That's why it gets stuck with you for so long. But there are things you can take from it and life lessons that can be leveraged. Ryan, when you go back and you look at all the games you played and stuff and just the whole collegiate experience at Boise State, a question I have for you, what's the toughest transition going from high school ball to collegiate football, especially on a team like that where you're playing in some big games against some big time programs? Like, what was the biggest transition? Was it physical? Was it the student part of it, having to go to class, keep your grades up? Was it the mental toll? What was the biggest transition for you?
That's a excellent question, because I think that's going to be different for everyone. And it's multiple things going on. One, for me, it was physical. I was transitioning from a safety to I thought I was going to be an outside linebacker, end up at DN. So I had to change my body physically. The change of going from high school to college, like you're going to these different classes, you're living by yourself. I remember my mom, having to teach me how to do laundry before I went to school, all these little things, doing that. And then the mentality of we had our scholarship athletes, and I'm a walk-on over here, just a scrub trying to make the squad and earn my way. That was pretty mentally taxing there, but I just kind of kept my head down and grounded out. But I think everyone's going to have their own challenge there. Some people are just physically advanced. I always tried to be as mentally strong as I could. I knew that was an advantage for me, so I played off that quite a bit.
That's awesome. Yeah, I see everyone. It's interesting you said, because I've asked that question to some different people on the show in the past, and everyone seems to have a different answer. Some people struggled academically, like struggling to get their grades up and keep them up and staying on top of their homework. Some people struggle from just being homesick. And then, like you said, sometimes it's just different things for everybody. What was the biggest thing for you, though, to be able to keep going? Was it just being consistent and having a routine? Is there any advice you'd give to the athletes that are struggling with a transition to go to collegiate athletics? Like, what would you say, knowing what you know now?
Whatever you're struggling at, make that your priority number one to kick the crap out of it. So, luckily, like grade school wasn't an issue for me, luckily. But they have mandatory study hall for people that it is an issue. The weight room, I just tried to spend as much time in as I could, because I needed to physically change and get stronger. But yeah, just know your weaknesses and make sure that they don't get exploited. Take care of them and try to put them as your top priority.
I dig that. Before I ask you about your professional stint, I wanted to actually touch base on something that Coach Petersen said. I had taken note on this to make sure I touch base on it. When I was there for the Athletic Leadership Conference 2 years ago, he said something about compound interest effect, like the compound interest. And he had given an example of when he was at Boise State and he had noticed something. And I'm sure he's talked about this in multiple places, but he said that he went into different skill sets, like going to check how they're doing their little skills training in each room. Everyone's meeting individually with their specific positions. And he noticed that some were prepared better than others. Some of the coaches were prepared better than others on the classroom side of it. And when they got out to the field, they noticed that like the running backs were doing things at a higher level than this skill or this position was. And so he said he had to talk to all the coaches and say, hey, no, we got to, it's the compound interest, because how you do this, like little things every day every single time you're on the field and you're implementing what you're teaching in the classroom, it's going to be a compounded interest effect. So by the time we get near the end of the season, all this stuff's we don't want the running backs to be up here with all how they're progressing. And then these guys over here are not matching it. We need the whole team to be that way. Did you notice that as a player under Coach Petersen's leadership, the whole compound interest effect?
Looking back, you see it for sure. When you're in the heat of the moment, you don't. I think the coaches could feel it. And because you knew certain position groups, especially early on, or in different spots, kind of like you see, or we just saw like in spring ball, one side of the ball is going to be ahead of the other. But that sounds like such a Coach Pete thing. He's just a wizard at analyzing and breaking things down and then making it simple to really perform and do better. I have so much respect for him as a human being, but also as a leader. Of what he does and how he breaks these things down like that. So that's great. I have not heard his compound interest effect, but I definitely see it.
No, that's cool. Okay. That's awesome. And who was your favorite teammate throughout your career at Boise State? There's a lot of good teammates, I'm sure, on the defensive side of the ball, on the offensive side of the ball, but who was your favorite teammate that was most influential and like impactful for you in your career?
Oh, that's a tough one to pick out one guy. I think it kind of went in waves there. When I was a young guy, as this young buck coming up, I had, Nick Schleckaway was kind of a guy I looked to because he just worked his butt off in the weight room all the time. And he was going to be the hardest working guy. And so the work ethic there, I really admired, and he instilled in me. And then later on, I loved all the guys on our D line. To become the leader of that group, and then just have so many awesome guys out of there. Tyler Shoemaker is one of my best buddies, and what we really enjoyed is I'd go play like wide out, and then he'd play D end, and we'd do this in practice sometimes, and it was always a good time. But he made it competitive in the weight room. We just competed all the time, but we had fun with it. And looking back at that, the gains I had over that summer and then that season physically were pretty large due to that fact in him.
That's so cool. Shoemaker too, man. Holy cow. Like, he was a year younger than I was, but he went to a school here locally called Mountain View High School. And honestly, all of us thought he was going to college for basketball. I mean, he was a basketball stud. Yeah, dude, he was just a hooper, man. Like, I hated playing against him because I was not near the skill set of him. And he was intimidating too. He was such a good basketball player. So when he went and played football, same with Kyle Efaw. So like when Efaw was playing, like, we all expected him to go play basketball. We're like, what? And then he ended up having a pretty successful career in football. Like, those two specifically were like, and Jarrell Root, for example, like, that was another guy that was like similar too, because he was like a skinnier athletic guy in high school. And yeah, he was dominant on the football field, but like, he was also a hooper. And so we all thought these guys were hoopers, and then they went and played pretty successful football careers. It's kind of cool. Starting during the same era too. So Ryan, when we get to your professional career, like at what point during your collegiate career did you say, hey, maybe I might take a stab at this at the next level of that? I asked you the same thing on your high school career going into college. At what point in your collegiate career did you realize, like, okay, I think I can make a shot at this, or run at this at the NFL career?
Kind of funny, same time, like that sophomore to junior year, talking with some of the older guys or something that are like, hey, and the scouts are coming through every week, right? And all of a sudden one pulls you aside or wants to talk to you. And then going to junior year, have a pretty good season statistically that year. Then agents start coming out of the woodworks, right? And they're contacting my family and just different people at that time. And my coaches know, they're like, hey, talk to this guy, don't talk to that guy. And then Pete actually came in. He said, you should put your name in. We had a couple guys leave early to go in the draft. And he's like, it's something worth looking at, so you know where you stand in the draft if you were to come out as a junior. So I submitted my stuff for the NFL to basically have a bunch of scouts say where they think he would come out if he came out early. I got like a 5th to 7th round grade, or 4th to 6th round grade, something like that. And and even if it was a 3rd or 2nd round grade, I wasn't coming out, just with the team we had and the camaraderie. So I had a pretty good idea at that point that, okay, like, this could be a possibility to go to the next level.
Man, that's crazy. Do you regret it all, like staying for your next year, like your senior year, and not going out early at all?
No, not at all. It might have been better for my professional career, but I had so much fun in my senior year with that group of guys and that team we had that there's nothing really that could replace that.
Nah, that's cool to hear, man, because some people, you never know. Like, I'm sure that no one wants to say they regret anything, but it's like almost hindsight. You're like, but it's cool because you do have those memories that will last forever. That was amazing. I can't even imagine, because even as a fan and a student, like, that was such a fun, like, just era. When you got over into the NFL, undrafted free agent, going through that process, what was that like for you? Did they, like, I guess from the day that you signed, and then how long before you flew out there and had to start doing your camps and trying to make a roster spot?
Yeah, it was kind of a wild process to be an undrafted guy that year, because it was the lockout year. So as soon as the draft ended, I was on the phone with teams at the end of the draft, and they're like, "We're just gonna pick you up as a free agent." It's like, okay. But as soon as the draft ended, they have to cut off all communication, because they go back to negotiations. And then, oh man, it's like, I want to say it's some towards middle to end of July. I was at my girlfriend's house. I remember all of a sudden my phone just going nuts, and it was calls from all the different teams. And my agent calls me. He's like, "Hey, the lockout's going to end here. They're announced it's done. We need to take a look at some teams." And I was kind of in this, once again, in a tweener position spot. I'd end up taking, due to the advice of a local scout in town, to take some tight end reps. He told Pete. So I ended up playing a bit of tight end my senior year too. And he thought that'd be a better fit for me in the NFL, and went to the combine. I did it as a D end and a tight end. And then got on the phone with Atlanta, who I'd talked to quite a bit leading up to the draft. And they said, "We really want you to come here and play tight end. We'll put some defensive packages together if we need to." But so went out to, after a couple of days after the lockout ended, signed with Atlanta, and then pretty much immediately flew out there for it was like a condensed rookie mini camp. It was really quick, and we just went straight into camp.
Was there any kind of moment there for you, Ryan, where you were kind of shell shocked, like, now we're in the NFL, like there's some players here that was there anything there that was like, whoa, or did you feel like, no, this is where I belong?
Yeah, I immediately put my foot in my mouth, because like as soon as the day we started real camp, in the tight end room at the time, we got Tony Gonzalez there, and I'm like, "Hey Tony, nice to meet you. I loved watching you as a kid." And he's like, "Oh, that's cool." Like, since he's in year 15 in the NFL, and I'm telling him I like to watch him as a little kid. But anyway, we had a really cool crew there, but that was definitely like a welcome to the business world. I remember he was giving me a ride somewhere, and he's like, "I got to go sign some stuff." And he comes, I'm like, "What were you doing?" And he goes, "Oh, I had to go sign my signing bonus. We restructured my contract. They had to bump $7 million forward for my signing bonus." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool. That sounds nice."
Holy crap.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. Oh man. So going through like your camps and everything, and trying to get through the preseason, what was your favorite memory of that? I guess like that's a cool thing that not a lot of people talk about, because a lot of fans just see it from the outside. They don't realize what the grind might be like. They don't realize that like the preseason matters for a lot of guys. The majority of the guys, the preseason matters. They look at the stars and the ones who are starters, and they just assume like, preseason is so boring. But the preseason is kind of a big deal. I mean, it's where these guys are trying to make a name for themselves and stuff. So what was that like for you going through all of that?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a stressful time, because I was trying to make a squad at a position that I really hadn't played very much. They don't teach technique in the NFL. You're expected to know it. And I had very little technique coaching at tight end, but I had a very understanding coach in Chris Selfo there. And he's like, "You just keep improving. You keep improving." And by the time we got to end of camp, he's like, "Dude, you're going to make the team, or you're going to be on the practice squad, but you just keep going." So I was kind of blessed to have him, who had some patience with me, I guess. And then good guys to learn from. Tony Gonzalez, Matt Ryan, all those guys were really good leaders, and also took time to be patient and understand the offensive side of the ball.
Oh, that's cool, man. And then When the time came, so to my understanding, you were on the practice squad for a little bit, weren't you? Like for
Yeah.
half the season or close to it or something?
So it's a weird deal. When we had our last preseason game, and before the game, they're like, okay, you did it, you made it. We're going to go out there and you're going to get like 30 plays and then we're done. And I got rolled up on and basically broke my ankle right then. And so they go, we're not going to injure reserve. We could put you on injured reserve, but we're going to waive you and bring you back in 6 weeks as a 6-week injury deal. And in that time, about by week 4, I was ready to go. But since you sign a contract on the waiver, Atlanta couldn't bring me back until week 6. So Tampa Bay calls and they say, hey, we want you to come play fullback. And I was like, well, okay, tight end's a stretch, but fullback, that's going to be tough. So long story short, I fly to Tampa. I do a workout at fullback and fail miserably. And they don't sign me. And I fly home. And then I'm home for like a week. And then Atlanta calls and says, we're going to come work you out, make sure your ankle's okay. I did. And then we're going to sign you back to the practice squad starting off here. And then we'll move on. And the wildest part of this whole story is Tommy Gallarda, who was our stud tight end at Boise State and a good friend of mine. When I got waived in Atlanta, they brought him in to be the tight end on the practice squad. So I come flying out. I'm like, hey, see Tommy in the locker room before my workout. And I talk to the guys. I'm like, hey, is this going to be me and Tommy? He's like, yeah, you guys are going to be you guys will be together. I'll see how this goes. And then I get back in the locker room after my workout and Tommy's clearing out his locker because they cut him to make a spot for me. I was like, so it was kind of brutal, but it worked out. I was like, hey, Tommy, can I rent your apartment? And so I basically took Tommy's car, his apartment, all his furniture, and it ended up working out. We had another guy get hurt a couple weeks later and Tommy came back and we got to live together. So.
Dude, what a whirlwind of emotions.
Wild.
Dude. That's crazy, dude.
It was wild. Yeah.
So Ryan, I guess my question on this is, at what point did you know that it was time to, I guess, move on to the next phases of your adult life? I guess, when did you know it was time to hang him up from a playing perspective?
I had gotten bit by that injury bug pretty well. I buggered up my ankle, then I separated my shoulder later on in the season. And I'd been banged up a little bit in college, and I just got to thinking, I was like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. And in all honesty, the biggest part of it for me was probably the mental challenge. Like every week I'm going in, I'm like, am I going to get cut? I can't screw up, and I was sitting down like, football's not fun for me anymore. I'm done. And so I called the GM before I'd signed a new contract. And then before minicamp, I called the GM and just said, I'm out. And it was funny. They were really cool with it. They're like, dude, if you don't love it and you come out here and you snap your neck, or you break your back, like how horrible would that be? So we parted ways mutually. And I actually had been exploring job offers and had a job offer in the real world. So I kind of just transitioned from football to working in the real world.
I love that, man. That's actually, it's kind of cool to hear, because I wanted to ask you as we're wrapping up the interview of, what is one of the bigger things that you've taken from football to transition into the business world? I want to know that specifically. Like, what's one of the skill sets you've been able to acquire that you've been able to use in the business side?
Yeah. I think number one is being a competitor, right? You'll notice athletes in the business world, they're kind of driven a little bit differently. You set a goal, you're going to go get it. Now you're not going to do it by going and hitting people, but you're going to, try to outsmart people and outwork people and be strategic is a big one. But yeah, I think just having a plan in place and that competitive factor is really a big benefit in the business world, and being able to deal with a team and have relationships with people and have everyone get along and come to resolutions is another huge asset from team sports.
Oh, I love that, man. I love it. So the last question I have for you, if you would look back and just give one piece of advice or one final thing to say about just your overall career from football till now to the younger generation that's looking to do it, what's your biggest piece of advice then?
I'd say no matter what, and this always came from my dad, he just said, no matter what situation you're in, you're down, you're up, you're struggling. It's like, stop and remember to have fun. It's sports at the end of the day. It can be competitive and stressful, but make sure you're having fun. Put a smile on your face. And if you do that, you'll perform so much better.
Remember to have fun. That's something that I'm going to tell the kids that I coach, the high school kids that I'm coaching, and even the younger kids that are like my son's age. Just stop and remember to have fun. I think sometimes we all, as competitors, we take it very seriously. That's what that's part of our nature as athletes, former athletes. But that's a great piece of advice. So shout out to your pops for that one as well. Yeah. Appreciate it, Ryan. Ryan, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to join the show and letting me, have this opportunity to converse with you. It's cool for me. It's nostalgic for me just to kind of go back in those glory days as well. Like when all I had to do was watch the game and enjoy it, but they brought some good memories to me. So I just appreciate the opportunity to chat with you, man. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Shane. I really enjoy your platform and thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. For all those out there who are listening to the show, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this one with Ryan Winterswyk. We'll be coming to you next week with another interview. Take care. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review. It would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.